abbreviation of AWT is none other than Abstract Windows Toolkit, and this is a small package that we need to include while installing our Java programming. The flow starts with an user action. Yes, absolutely. Whenever a action is being requested by a user, then our flow will be starting. It starts with a creation of windows. Inside that windows, we can go ahead with creating simple objects, title boxes. Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the second session of Unit 4, that's under OP with Java. Yes, this session is all about understanding the GUI programming as well as event handling. Over here, my name is Deepa Kutnikar. I am working as an assistant professor at the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. Let's begin our session. So over here, this was the recap of previous session in which we have discussed file handling and the input-output handling. What are the different types included in it? What are the different methods that we use in order to do the file handling process? Then finally, we have different kinds like file input stream, file output stream, then binary input output class, then object IO classes. So all these things have been discussed, and at last we also did discuss the advantages of file handling. So this is our session 1. Alright, let's move forward and see the agenda of today's session. In today's session, we will be learning the GUI programming and how to handle the events with respect to Java programming. Let's begin our session with GUI programming. Basically, let's understand what a GUI is all about. So let's see here. This is a basic Windows icons that will be present in your systems, right? So whenever you give a click on the Windows button, so we can see multiple windows all together, correct? So now these icons will allow the users to interact happily or in a efficient manner, right? So the menus, then the icons, the buttons, as well as the text fields all together form a format of interaction between the users. So this interface or the icons all put together, we call it as a GUI. That is none other than graphical user interface. So that's nothing but a GUI. So now we can see that how the Java supports these kind of interface or GUI interface. So there will be separate tools that we have to include in order to do this GUI. So what are those tools? The tools are none other than AWT, JavaFX and Swing. So these are few of the most widely used GUI tools that's with respect to Java programming. Now let's understand this AWT in depth, as it is one of most widely used GUI that is utilized when we are doing programming with Java programming. So now let's understand what exactly is AWT. AWT is nothing but Abstract Windows Toolkit. So the abbreviation of AWT is none other than Abstract Windows Toolkit, and this is a small package that we need to include while installing our Java programming. Why we need to include? Because by including this library or a small toolkit, we can easily create the GUIs. Now let's see how was it done. So it is considered as java.awt. It is a small package that we need to consider. Alright, now let's understand what's the use of java.awt. It provides the event handling mechanism as well as the GUI features for a user. So that's the main advantage of utilizing this java.awt package. Moreover, we can also say that it completely uses the platform dependent components only. So that's the main advantage of this AWT, like it won't consider multiple tools to support AWT or event handling. Whatever there in the inside the package, it will just consider it, and within that we can cleanly and efficiently build a very good GUI. Great. Now let's understand the event handling process. Before understanding event handling, let's simply understand what is an event. Event is nothing but an action that is performed by a user during the process. Okay, any action that is performed by a user, it is called as an event. Now what is event handling? Event handling is a process that has the control or it controls the program's execution methods, or we can also say that it controls like how programs will respond to the events. So this is a simple event handling mechanism. Let's consider a simple example like clicking a button by the user, then pressing a key, moving the mouse. So these are all the events, correct? So thus it is considered as example under events. Thus these are various examples of event handling. So that's important, correct? If we move a mouse, then at the same time our cursor has to move. That has to be verified, correct? Both the cursor and the mouse has to move hand in hand. That is a simple event. So in this way, whatever event we will initiate, it has to happen. So that happening will be controlled, or it will be handled through the event handling process. It might be through a software, or it might be through a OS. Alright, this is all about event handling. Now let's prioritize our thing and let's study event handling with respect to Java. Java uses specific event handling model which is called as delegation event model, which involves in event sourcing, event object and a event listener. This model completely separates the event generation as well as the event handling logics. Alright, as we know, there's a separate model under Java that is considered for event handling. Yes, it's none other than our delegation event handling method or a model. Now let's see a simple representation here. We know that it contains three of the fields, that is none other than event source, event object and a event interface. So let's understand it in a better way through this pictorial representation. The initial thing that we have to concentrate on is a event source. As the name itself says, it is a event source. It creates or generates the events. Alright, the event source will create or generate the event. So we can see that once the event is created, it will be forwarded to event object. We can also see that it is being invoked and is passed to the next level, that is a object level. So what happens here is the event object will be holding that complete information regarding the event, like what it has to do with that initiated event, then where it has to be forwarded. It will be containing all the event information. Okay, so that's why it is called as an event object. Up next, once an event object is created, then it will hold the information. Up next, the next thing what we have to take care is with respect to event interface. So that's the third component of our model, that is listener interface, or we can also call it as event listener. This is responsible for receiving and handling the real-time events. So this is a representation of a simple model that is being utilized under Java programming for event handling, and the name is none other than delegation event model. All right, let's move forward. Now let's see the event handling flow. So what is the flow that we have to take care of? The flow starts with an user action. Yes, absolutely. Whenever a action is being requested by a user, then our flow will be starting. The next thing we have to take care of event source. Once an action is requested, then a source will start creating it. Okay, once it is created, next object is created. In that object, what happens is it will collect the complete event information. All right, even that flow is completed. The next thing is a event listener. So this listener is responsible to collect the events and handle them. So this is our flow. Finally, once the events are handled, the next thing what we have to take care is a response. So this is a resultant of this process. Thus, we can say that event handling is successfully completed. That's by utilizing delegation event model of Java programming. Great. Now let's understand the types of events that is considered under Java programming. The first one is an action event. The next one is a mouse event, and third one is a keyboard event. The first one, action events, are completely generated by the buttons as well as menu items. And the class that we need to consider it with respect to programming is class action event. All right, the next type is a mouse event. Mouse event, as we know that if I move the mouse, I want the event to be handled. So it is completely generated by the mouse actions. And with respect to programming, the class that we have to consider is none other than a mouse event. Alright, further the third one is the keyboard events, which is solely generated by the keyboard actions. The class that we consider with respect to this is none other than a key event. Alright, let's see a simple summary of these things that we have discussed. A common event class. We know that we have various events with respect to our event handling, right? And with respect to that, we need to describe what it is. So let's start with the action event. So this event is generated whenever a button click is done. The next one is mouse event. So this mouse event is being generated when a mouse is clicked or it is moved. Alright, the next one is key event. As the name itself says, it is generated when we press a key or when we release a key. The next event is a window event. So this is not widely used, but it is responsible for complete window actions. So these are the various common event classes. Yes, let's study each in depth. The first thing is keyboard event handling. As we know, the keyboard events are handled using the key listener, and with respect to this, the methods that we can utilize are none other than key pressed, key released, and key typed. So these are the three different methods that we can consider in order to handle the events that is generated by a simple keyboard. And let's understand where these events are used or utilized. It is used for text input validations and during the shortcut keys. The next event is none other than the mouse event handling. As we understood, the mouse events are handled using the mouse listener and a simple mouse motion listener. Alright, up next, let's see the methods that is utilized along with a common mouse handling. So the first event is none other than mouse clicked. Alright, the next one is mouse pressed, followed by mouse released, mouse entered, and mouse exited. Now let's see what is the simple difference between clicked and pressed. Clicked, it is responsible to count the number of clicks. Like sometimes we have to make a double click or we have to make a right click, correct? So these clicks are responsible and it belongs to click. But this mouse pressed, it's for a single press. Okay, that's the difference between these two cases. Over here, we have a small figure of mouse event handling. We have a simple mouse and here we are clicking. Left button is clicked. Then the event will be generated and that has to be answered through a event object. Then followed by the event listener and then the response will be provided. So this is with respect to the mouse event handling. Now let's understand the components of AWT. The components is nothing but the building blocks of AWT, which is responsible for designing a GUI. So it consists of containers, controls, as well as the layout managers. So these are the three main things that has to be considered. It starts with a creation of windows. Inside that windows, we can go ahead with creating simple objects, title boxes, or the different containers can be added. Thus, the initial thing is to create a window or a simple panel. So the difference between window and a panel is window, it is a complete window which contains a close button, minimize button, maximize button, like that a small buttons will be included. And the panel will not contain the title bar or the menu bar. It just contains a small menus and the containers. Alright. Once these are created, we will go forward with creating container or list or a label or a button according to my application or my requirement that I need to design on my window. That's a GUI interface. Alright, once it is done, all this can be accounted as component. And once you consider the component, regarding that component, proper information has to be stored, correct? So there is where we will be creating object in order to store that component's information. So this is a small pictographical representation of the various AWT components. Great. Now let's see what is the hierarchy of AWT class. The initial thing will be started with creation of a panel, then a creation of a container which holds various windows or frames or dialogues according to our requirement. Once the container is done, then I can go with a component, and with respect to this component I can define the object that is required with respect to component. So this is the hierarchy of AWT component class. Thus, let's start understanding the various AWT controls. Yes, this is with respect to AWT controls, and this small figure depicts the common AWT controls that we can include. Alright, so over here let's understand the components. So the components can be anything according to our requirement, like it can be a simple label. All right, I'll be considering a label, correct? That is required because it says like what it is, then followed by a text field. If anything has to be written or commented with respect to that label, yes, I can do it over here under text field. Up next, we have multiple buttons, and each button will be assigned with some important information according to the application that we are supposed to be designing. So I have just considered 3 of the buttons, like button 1, button 2, button 3. So these labels, text field, buttons are few examples of components. Now let's see with respect to the complete screen. So this rectangle box is simply considered as a frame. All right, now what is a panel? So over here we have a separation, correct, for a label, for button. So these things put together can be considered as small panels. So this is considered as panel 1, and this is considered as panel 2. Or we can simply say that the partitions inside the frame can be considered as a panel. So did you got the difference between the main window and the small panels? Okay, in this way your apps, the Google worksheets as well as the softwares are being developed. Isn't it cool? It's very simple, but it depends on our understanding, correct? I believe now you can just correlate these things with whatever the app you use or the software or a web page that you open, right? So it is a utilization of AWT controls, and the best part is these controls will interact with the users also. All right, now we did understood frame, but yes, let's go in more depth and understand frame only. The frame is nothing but a top level container, and it is used to create a window. It can also contain other components too. Now, how to create this frame using programming? So that's through writing frame f equals new frame, and we are writing the title. Yes, this title has to be depicted here. All right, the next thing, f dot set, I am setting the dimension of this frame window. Then I am logically saying whether it is a correct thing. It has to show that yes, that's by writing f dot set visible true. If it is true, only then the window will be displayed, or else it won't be displayed. So over here we can see that the frame width can be considered and the frame height. So in this way, a frame, a simple window, when you open a notepad, for example, when we open a notepad, yes, the free space that can be considered as a frame, and we can see the dimension of that frame, like what is the width of it, what is the length of it. So that's a simple frame in AWT. The next component is nothing but a panel. So we have already seen that panel is nothing but a simple separators, right? It can also be called as a container inside a frame window. And the main advantage of this is it is utilized to group the similar components or related components, and it won't include any of the title bar or the menu buttons. So that's with respect to panel. And the declaration example, panel P equals new panel of. So panel of is the method that we are supposed to use in order to create separate container inside the frame. Now with respect to this, we can call this as a panel, and the main window, this has a simple frame. So now this is called as a frame, and the small box that is being created, we can call it as a simple panel. Alright, up next, let's understand the layout manager. So when we learned creation, there should be something to manage that, correct? Yes, the creation of the title boxes or the various components will be handled or managed by this layout managers. And with the utilization of this layout manager, there is no need to go back to single component and resize it. Once you resize your complete main window, the other components that is present inside that window will automatically resize. Thus, let's see what are the important layout managers that are available in the Java programming. The first layout manager is none other than flow layout. Next one, border layout, grid layout, and a card layout. So over here in this image, we can see that a simple window with numbers can be represented even in this square box, and the space can be managed, and the same operation can be done with utilizing the space using a good rectangle box shape design, correct? So in this way, we will go forward with managing our components, and thus is the responsibility of the layout manager. All right, up next, let's see the various layout managers one by one. The first one is the flow layout. So this is a complete default layout for a panel. The components are arranged from left to right, and the syntax that we can consider is set layout of new, flow layout of. So this is the case. Next is a border layout. As we know, name itself says, this completely responsible for handling the border variations. So how this handling happens? By dividing a complete window into multiple regions like a north, south, east, west, and a center part. Thus the method that is considered is set layout of new, border layout of. Yes, over here we can see that the regions are separated as north, south, east, west, and a center. Okay, now let's understand a complete practical thing, that's programming with respect to this AWT. Let's start with importing java.awt. Okay, we have imported the AWT library. Then we are creating a class that is simple GUI, which includes the main method. Okay, inside that we are creating a frame. Okay, so that's the first thing, correct? We need to create a main window, and that is nothing but a AWT example. So the title we have given is a AWT example, followed by we are creating a button inside that frame, which is called as click me. So this gives us a simple GUI. All right, once it is done, next we have to add the dimensions for that. So how is it? That's by f.add of b followed by size, which includes the dimension, that is 300 cross 200. Next f.set layout of new flow layout. Okay, so this is a default layout, correct? So yes, we are calling it. All right, up next, and must ensure the last statement is f.set visible of true. So once it is done, let's close the brackets, and after execution, we will be getting this GUI, a frame created with a title AWT example and a button with click me. Thus, this is a simple GUI example that's built by importing the AWT library. Let's see the advantages of AWT. AWT is very simple and easy to learn. We can also consider the direct interactions with iOS, followed by suitable for basic GUI applications. Up next, let's understand the limitations of AWT. The initial disadvantage of AWT is it's completely platform dependent and it has very limited components. Thus, we can say that this is less flexible compared to the next library, that is a swing one. This was all about our today's session. So we have successfully completed all the 4 units of your syllabus. So I wish all the very best for your exams. Do well and score well. Thank you.